Hey y'all, we are going to see if we can get this. Orientation is locked. Trying to get this thing flipped correctly. Orientation is not locked. Okay, guess we're gonna do this for now. Yeah, we're trying out the phone tonight, and my phone for whatever reason isn't picking up orientation. So whatever, we'll do this. Welcome to Talkin Dawgs. Robbie Falk here from Maroon and White Daily and On 3. And also for the Starkville Daily News, Thunder and Lightning podcast, all that jazz. You guys know me. Most of you are routine viewers of this each and every week. Next week, I guess we'll go back to the laptop. I was going to try to do the phone today. The orientation thing's still screwed up just like it was on my last YouTube account. So whatever. We've got a few more capabilities now because we've reached a certain amount of subscribers. So I was going to try to do it with my phone. I'm not going to stress about that. But I appreciate you guys putting up with the horizontal view nonetheless. We're going to talk some Mississippi State football. And whatever else you guys want to talk about. You want to talk about soccer, basketball, baseball, we'll do any of that. You guys know the drill here on Talkin Dawgs. We will talk anything and everything Mississippi State sports or whatever else. Whatever you guys, whatever your heart desires, we will discuss here on Talkin Dawgs. So I want to start with what we just witnessed the other day. You can get my full thoughts on the game. I'm sure I'll give some more in this broadcast, but you can get my full thoughts on the game in a 22-minute video that I posted right after the game, the reaction video that I put up on the site. I went a little more in-depth on the game than what we're probably going to do today, but just a quick overview from what we saw against Texas. I mean, first of all, this was a game Mississippi State was picked to lose by 37 points. And, you know, if you're into these moral victory things, you're picked to lose by 37 points. You lose by 22. That's a 2-touchdown differential. That seems significant for me. That seems, it's a positive step for Mississippi State when you consider kind of where they're at. Vegas believes that this team is almost a 40-point difference with Texas, and they were in the ball game into the fourth quarter. You're losing the game 14-6 at the half, and in the last minute of the half, you're down 7-6. You give up a big long touchdown pass. I've seen some people upset about that play from Mississippi State, the play call there by Coleman Hutzler. I wasn't that upset about it because I know the deficiencies that Mississippi State has in defending the pass. And, I mean, you look at the numbers from Arch Manning and you look at pretty much what everybody's been doing against Mississippi State, and that's completing passes at a high rate. 26 of 31 through 5 incompletions the whole game. I think a couple of them were drops, so almost every one of his passes were catchable. 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. On that play right before the half, they bring a blitz. It's pretty much zero blitz. You have a safety matched up with one of the better receivers on the team for Texas, and DeAndre Moore, and he hauls in a 49-yard touchdown reception. But it's one of those deals where, you just got to take a chance right there. It's third down, I believe, at that time. And you send a blitz on the play. You try to make a play right there, and you hit Arch Manning. I thought, you got a good blitz on him. You popped him. He just stood in the pocket and made a nice throw, and Moore beat Corey Ellington in a matchup of safety and wide receiver, which that happened a lot in this game. I didn't have a lot of issues with it. And still, even after that, Mississippi State was in the game. You only gave up 7 points in the third quarter. State just could not score. Right after the half, you get a fumble in the first possession, and you fumbled it right back. I thought that was killer for Mississippi State. But, it was going to be very difficult for State to win this game. The talent and the depth that Texas had down the stretch was eventually going to come into play, and it was going to be tough for Mississippi State to win this thing. But the fact that they were kind of neck and neck there with them for 2.5 quarters, you could even probably include the third. You're down by 2 touchdowns at that point. that said a lot about Mississippi State, the fight that they had, the job that Michael Van Buren did in the ball game. Van Buren wasn't perfect by any means, but 20 for 23. He had two. It should have been 14 for 23. He had two drops on beautiful passes down the field where Jordan Mosley and then Mario Craver both dropped passes. That puts him over 200 yards if you make those two plays, and he's 14 of 23 in his first start. He was sacked 6 times. Almost every single sack was because of the offensive line just not doing a very good job against the edge rushers from Texas. And we had a good idea that Texas was going to bring a lot of pressure. We talked about this last week on Thunder and Lightning. We knew that Texas was going to bring a lot of pressure on Michael Van Buren. The key for Mississippi State was being able to run the football and control the clock. And the game plan was almost perfect for Mississippi State. They had time possession was 34 minutes to 25. Perfect. 8 of 17 on third downs. They were staying on the field. They were converting third downs. That was moving the chains and keeping them out there longer than 3 plays. They only had 2 possessions where they had 3 plays or less outside of the possession right before the half, where they went to the half. So 2 full possessions for Mississippi State where they didn't get a first down. That's a win for them. The fact that they continued to get first downs was huge. 19 first downs to Texas 21. I've seen a lot of Mississippi State offenses go on the road, way better teams than what Mississippi State has right now, go on the road against a top 5 team, and they can't get first downs. They can't run the football. This team ran for almost 200 yards on design runs. They had 200. They had 201 yards gained in this ball game. They lost 51 yards, mostly on sacks. The 6 sacks that really killed them. I mean, so their average yard per rush would have been really good had they not had the sacks. But unfortunately, that's part of the game. 150 yards rushing is still good. That's what I said would have been a success for Mississippi State coming in if they could have gone on the road and gotten 150 yards rushing against Texas, and they did. They had 150 yards rushing, so they ran the football with success. They took some pressure off of Van Buren. They possessed the football for 30-plus minutes, which kept the defense off the field a decent amount. And you got a solid game from Michael Van Buren. Those were all things that we talked about Mississippi State needed to do in this ball game. Whether that be them winning it or just staying in the game, they needed to do that just to show some progress. So I don't have a whole lot of complaints about this team and what they did. And even the defense, I mean, we know what the defense is at this point. We know they're going to struggle. They gave up 522 yards. They gave up 8 yards a play. That's a ton of yards. But I don't look at success for this defense moving forward and how they limit teams' yardage. I look at success on when they can, how many times they can get off the field. Are you forcing teams to kick field goals and punt? Or are you giving up a bunch of touchdowns? That's what I'm looking at for this team. There is never going to be a game the rest of the way outside of maybe UMass where Mississippi State's defense is going to be controlling the ball game, and they're going to be constantly getting the team off the field. They're holding a team like under 300 yards. That's just not going to happen. They're going to give up a ton of yards every game. It's going to be one of the worst defenses in the country this year. But they can still be successful. And this is some of the stuff that was kind of the talk early on, when we knew they weren't going to have a talented defense, we knew Coleman Hutzler was going to be kind of in over his head a little bit. They were going to have to be kind of bend but don't break and forcing turnovers. And that's what they did in this game. 35 points is not a win. Like, that's not something to be super excited about. You gave up 35 points. That's still a lot of points. But you held them without any points on several possessions. You forced turnovers in this game. That was, to me, the big win for Mississippi State, is you showed the ability against a really good offense to get off the field. And that's what you got to do. It's been a struggle for this team, but they gave up 1 touchdown in each of the first 3 quarters, nothing more, and they gave up 2 touchdowns in the last quarter. So it was never like really overwhelming for this defense. They were able to get off the field. That was a good thing. So another thing that really stood out in this game was Johnny Daniels. I think by far the best Mississippi State running back on the team. And that's having seen all of them. And we know Jeffrey Pittman's not coming back. We know Kevon Lee's going to be out for a while. I believe it's a collarbone or shoulder injury for him. And even with those guys, like had they been present, I think Johnny Daniels, from what we've seen from him this year, to me, is State's best running back. 15 carries, 75 yards. He had a 3-yard loss at one point, but that's it. For the most part, was churning his legs, keeping the pile moving. Even if he was hit the line of scrimmage, you saw him move the pile. That's big for Mississippi State. He has 47 carries on the year for 233 yards. And I think now you're going to allow him to get a little bit more of a groove in after what we saw the other day. I thought he was really good. This was easily his best game, but he actually had more yards against Florida, but I thought this was his best game overall. Blocking, running. I just thought the whole package was there for Johnny Daniels, and we haven't really seen that from anybody else. So Davon Booth, 18 carries, 59 yards, not terrible, but we just didn't see much from him. So I think, at this point, I would roll with Johnny Daniels. He would get the most rushes if I were in charge. I'm not in charge, but I'm just saying. And I really like what he brings to the table. All right. So, with that said, let's start getting to some of the questions. I see chat disconnected. I'm not sure what was going on there. Looks like I'm still broadcasting. So, I'm just, like I said, I'm trying out the phone instead. I'll probably just go back to the laptop next week. I was going to try to do that. It's just easier to have the phone and then have this chat going on in my computer. But I don't like the horizontal view. All right, so let's get to questions. As you know, you can put in your questions, comments, whatever in the chat box. We'll talk about it. Heath Johnson starts us off. Not a question, but I think we should continue to use both Van Buren and Parson just to change things up. I love your input. Yeah, I mean, my thing with that is you can kind of get the same thing from Van Buren. He's able to run the football just fine. I think that he would be okay running the football. I wouldn't want him to take too many hits. When Parson comes in the ball game, you know what he's going to do at this point. I mean, he didn't throw the football at all the other day, I don't think. No, he didn't throw the football at all. When he came in, he was running the ball. And so I just don't see a point in it at this point. I would just roll with Michael Van Buren and go from there. But that's just me. C. Lee, Jet Johnson coaching at UConn as a grad assistant. Yeah, he is. That's Matt Brock's defense. If people didn't know, I was gonna go see what they're up to. Jet Johnson, loved that guy. Was a great player for Mississippi State, but I think just realized, NFL wasn't going to work out, and he was one of those. He just didn't want to play in the XFL or the whatever they got going on now. If he wasn't going to play in the NFL, he was ready to move on, and that's basically what he did. He tried it out, and he's perfectly fine now with coaching, and I think that guy's going to be a great coach too. UConn's off to a 3-2 start. They did give up 50 points against Maryland. Put up a fight against Duke, who's undefeated. In the last 2 weeks, 48-14 over Florida Atlantic and 47-3 over Buffalo. So good for Jet. I hope Jet and Matt Brock too. I like Matt Brock a lot. I hope they have success over there at UConn. I think their coach is Jim Mora now. Pretty sure. Yeah, Jim Mora's there. Didn't really work out for him in his last stop, but maybe he can get some things going there at UConn. Bryce Hall, how instant do you think these JUCO football guys will be? Also, how do you think they will be? Just seems like most of the recent JUCO guys we've gotten haven't been worth it. Well, these guys are, I think, impact dudes. Tony Mitchell, especially. I mean, that's going to be one of the best JUCO guys out there this year. Would probably be helping Alabama this season as a defensive back. He's at EMCC now. Got into some issues there at Alabama that he's worked out, and he's been from the people that I talked to at EMCC. He's been very professional in how he's handled everything there. Gone about his business there has been really good for the Lions. I think he's a plug-and-play starter right away for Mississippi State. Another guy that I think Mississippi State is sitting pretty with, has a chance to sign, Zay Hardy. That's an immediate starter, I think, for Mississippi State next year. I truly believe he's starting on the defensive line. He could be playing for Mississippi State right now and helping State out. That's a guy that I'm pretty sure South Carolina placed him there at EMCC, but State has really impressed him. And would not shock me in the least that he joins the class fairly soon. So those two for sure are going to help out. LaKendrick James I really like too. I think he's going to be really good for State linebacker. So yeah, I think all those guys so far would help Mississippi State. Cavante Henry too, who's another guy that I think could help Mississippi State right away. He and Hardy are going, and Mitchell too, are going to be tremendous helps for this defense next year. And the same thing for James. I think he helps Mississippi State at the very least with depth, and that's what they need. Justin Tidwell, I said we have offered a lot of the top JUCO D linemen. Yeah, trying to find some guys that they can kind of get in there and build some depth, and then you go to the portal and you try to find some other players that can help make a major impact. But you don't want to rely solely on the portal. I think you want to have some eggs in your basket before you get there. And the best way to do that is by going to the junior college system and getting some guys that are a little more physically ready, especially some of these guys that have already been at a college before or were recruited by SEC schools coming out of high school. These guys can help you, and then you go to the transfer portal and you get guys that can probably provide a little more of an immediate impact. The State has to do a much better job building this defensive line group in the offseason this year than they did this past year, because David Turner just did not put Mississippi State in good position when you're talking about this defensive line. It's not a group that's going to win a lot of battles in the SEC. So I think what they're doing is they're starting to find some guys in JUCO that's going to be able to help them next year that look like they're college ready, or at least SEC ready, that are getting offers from around the SEC that are impact players. And then you fill a lot of holes with that, and then you go out there and get some transfer portal defensive linemen that can hopefully help. Craig Middleton, the announcers were blaming Van Buren for all the game delays, but he was getting the play call in at 8 to 10 seconds. Yeah, I think a lot of that's on Jeff Lebby. He's got to help his quarterback out a little bit. I don't know exactly, what all the communication was like during the game with that, but I do know that State was trying to run clock, and they did a very good job of that. And they probably need to have, some more communication there. There was definitely miscommunication. It's not something that I'm worried about long term. That was the first start for Michael Van Buren. He's playing on the road at Texas in front of 100,000 fans. A lot of people were upset about it, but it just is what it is with a true freshman quarterback. The back-to-back delay games were bothersome. That was, stuff that happened with Joe Moorhead. That's the only... That is the absolute only thing I'm gonna say was similar between Joe Moorhead and Jeff Lebby. I don't want to make any connections there. See, Lee, I thought Kai McClendon held up well on the D line, all things considered. What's the deal with Hibbler? He's just not physically ready yet. Yeah, just not ready. I mean, he's a true freshman that needs a little bit of time. Kai McClendon was a player, came in in January and really got a good head start and was really impressing a lot of players in spring. And then you get into fall and people start talking about he's one of the more impressive defensive tackles. It's not all that impressive when you look at the group now, but it is impressive for a true freshman that was playing both sides of the line, and you didn't really understand, like you didn't understand that he was going to be a defensive lineman right away, and he comes in late in the class. I thought this guy's, he's got a bright future. He's going to be really good for state. Let's see what he has done so far, because it feels like he's made a ton of tackles for a nose tackle. Yeah, 13 tackles, 4 games with a fumble recovery. No, that was Kelly Jones, the fumble recovery. He has 1 tackle for loss, 13 tackles. Solid. I mean, he's just a true freshman. He's going to be really good, I think. James Booth, who would be the ideal hire, assuming they're available, hypothetically speaking, if Hutzler's out at the end of the year? Just, I don't have anybody off the top of my head right now. I haven't really surveyed the landscape, but just somebody that's got defensive coordinator experience in the Power 5 or a rising Group of 5 guy. Can you do what you did in 2010 and get somebody like State did with Manny Diaz? That's what I'm looking for. Manny Diaz was a rising star at defensive coordinator. Mississippi State pulled him in. If you do move on from Hutzler, which I don't know anything for certain, but if you do move on, then I'm going to get somebody that has that experience. So yeah, I don't really have anybody that just like I'm just tied to at this point, but I just want somebody that's got experience, that's done this before, that can. I mean, recruiting is not even that big of a deal for me for a coordinator. I just want somebody that has experience calling a defense and running a really good scheme, and the guys underneath are the ones that are going to be doing most of the recruiting. I've never put a lot of stock in the defensive or offensive coordinators, being the best recruiters. I think your best recruiters are guys that are coaching position groups. So I'm not saying the dude needs to be a total dud in recruiting. You're going to have to be able to recruit some, but that's not a prerequisite that he has to be a rock star recruiter or anything like that. I want a defensive coordinator that's able to scheme it up. I don't think Zach Arnett's a great recruiter, but he was a really good defensive coordinator. Still is. Justin Tidwell, we need depth at O-line, but haven't heard much noise about anyone coming. Yeah, I mean, there's some guys underneath that'll fill in next year. There's obviously you'll probably go back to the portal to get some guys. But yeah, it's offensive line's kind of a concern right now. I think Mario Nash may go elsewhere. He's farting too much. It seems he's waiting on the next big name. No, I mean, I don't think he's waiting. He's got offers from just about everybody, and they're open to taking him. He just really likes recruiting. I was surprised he committed when he did, because he just really likes recruiting, and he's saying all the right things. So we'll see. I mean, the one thing that you have to sell to him is, hey man, you could come in here and play pretty early, because there's a lot of issues up front on the offensive line. There's openings there for you if you come in and work hard and do your job. So I don't know if that's going to be available for him elsewhere. That's something that is playing in State's favor, and also being close to home is a big deal. I still feel okay about him, but yeah, you never know until these guys sign. I mean, there's so much back and forth in recruiting. It's crazy. Nope. I understand people saying that our lack of tackling is due to bad coaching, but at what point should you already know how to tackle? You're in the SEC, for crying out loud. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I don't think it's totally on coaching at all. You should be able to tackle if you get to this stage, but there is something to the coaching the fundamental side of things, and that I mean they still coach tackling in the NFL. There's still a lot of fundamentals that go into the coaching side of things, and it just adds to it when you don't have necessarily the talent that you want. You better be really good at the fundamental side of things, and I mean this team's not even good at that, at least on defense. Justin, any word on when JJ Harrell will be available? We need that young class to get as experienced as possible. He's not playing this year unless they have injuries. He's not going to play. They're going to redshirt him. And at this point, I think that's the right decision. He's not ready yet. He's had some injuries from the spring. Unless something changes, that's going to be their plan to just redshirt him. And I think he's on board with that. Everything I've heard. C. Lee, I like Army as a Group of 5 contender for the college football playoff. I like the shotgun RPO that they've added to their normal triple option offense. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see the military schools really getting into the mix here. Both of the schools, Army and Navy, are undefeated right now, I believe. That's awesome. That's going to be a fun game. Any more questions? Just a really tough day for sports legends. Pete Rose, Dikembe Mutombo, both passing away today. That was really tough. And you just know that they come in threes, they say. So who's next? Hopefully we don't have another one. But that's just tough news. Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Should have been a long time ago. Nope, again. Do you feel like Michael Van Buren is our guy moving forward? Yeah, no doubt. I think for sure that's your dude. You roll with him. Hopefully he stays healthy and you're able to have a full rest of the season of kind of developing him, let him go through the ups and downs. But this is Lebby's guy, man. This is the guy that he picked coming out of high school. He was really excited about him. And here he is. He's getting his opportunity. And I thought made the most of it on Saturday. He never looked scared, never looked intimidated. And I didn't see a whole lot wrong with his game. I thought he played a fairly clean ball game, did a really good job. So yeah, I think he's definitely the guy. Justin Tidwell, how excited are you to watch Ole Miss get beat by South Carolina? We'll see, man. Lenore Sellers is back. It should be a good game. That was my pick preseason for Ole Miss for a scary game for them going on the road. South Carolina, they got some guys. They've recruited pretty well over there. Shane Beamer's recruited well. The atmosphere there is highly underrated. One of the best atmospheres in the country. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, if Ole Miss loses that game, it's trouble in paradise. Because Kentucky was not a game that anybody anticipated as a potential loss for Ole Miss. LSU is up there. Georgia, obviously. And that was about it. I mean, most everybody had them predicted 10-2, 11-1. And that's gonna be tough now. You got LSU coming up next week. You got Georgia. Oklahoma looks a little tougher. Arkansas doesn't look like a pushover. You're going to Arkansas. Florida, I don't know. That's at Florida. So who knows? Just kind of depends where they are at that point. Yeah, I feel safe saying they should beat State, but there's some games in there that are losable for Ole Miss, and that was not a good development for them to lose to Kentucky. CLXY, if you had to pick Booth or Daniels at running back for the rest of the season, who are you taking? Yes, Daniels for me. I mean, I just think that what he does, his style is a little bit better, a little bit more equipped to picking up some hard yards that State is going to have to get because the offensive line isn't quite, wiping people out to open up these giant holes. So it's got to be a guy in there that's able to move the chains and kind of move the pile a little bit. So I think that's my guy, and also just the way that he does all the little things right, goes out there and it was really good at pickup blocks. I like this kid a lot. I think he's going to be really good for State the next couple of years. So yeah, that would be my guy, no doubt. All right, we'll shut her off right there. Appreciate you guys. The bye week is here. I'm absolutely thrilled that Mississippi State's on a bye week. I love bye weeks. I love the fact that we get a little bit of a rest this week, but we'll have some more content for you from other sports. Tomorrow we'll talk to Chris Lamonis, so we'll have some thoughts from him on fall ball and kind of where they're at as a team. Thursday we're going to talk to Sam Purcell and a lot of players for women's basketball, so we'll have that. And then, just some other things coming your way this week. It's not going to be so football centric. Recruiting, obviously, we'll have that stuff every day over there at Maroon and White Daily. So come check us out if you haven't already. Come check us out at Thunder and Lightning. If you don't subscribe to that podcast, Mississippi State Daily Podcast, with myself and Brian Haydad. Subscribe to this channel if you don't already also. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great bye week. Enjoy yourself. No loss this week for Mississippi State, so that's a plus. And we will be back next Monday to preview the Georgia Bulldogs. Should be a lot of fun. But I appreciate you guys. Have a